It's helpful because I get to see more of their homes. They get to show me things that are important to them.
Yeah.
Normally, mom, dad, caregiver doesn't want them bringing in a suitcase of their most treasured possessions.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Family Care Learning Podcast. My name is Brandon Jones. I'm the Clinical Services Program Manager for Arizona Family Counseling and Christian Family Care. And with me today, I have Sarah Earls, one of our child and family therapists. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. Today, what I would like to talk about is telehealth, teletherapy. In light of the social distancing and the pandemic, we see that I know all of our counseling services for a long time had shifted to only telehealth, only teletherapy. And so that's where, for those of you that are watching, right, we're meeting through a platform like Microsoft Teams or Zoom or Skype, and you're holding your session from usually your home or some other location, and you're meeting with your therapist via telehealth. And we found some interesting things shifting from all in person to telehealth. And, I think there are some great things that we've kind of learned about that, but then also some challenges. And so what are some of the things that you've noticed from working with clients about like the benefits of telehealth?
Well, the first benefit that comes to mind is that you don't have to travel. So we're in Phoenix and there's something called traffic.
Yeah.
And so with telehealth, families can know my session's at 3:00. So as long as I'm home by 3:00, I know I can make it there versus I've had families before who therapy is very important to them. They've prioritized it, but they can't control an accident on the way here.
Yeah.
So it makes it a lot more accessible.
Yeah. Super convenient, right? Like I think about back before the 2020 stuff going on, and, I don't know how many times I had clients that are, emailing me or giving me a quick phone call. It's like, traffic. I'm just trying to get there. And right. And they're even kind of stressed, which is not ideal when we're trying to go and to do some therapy work, right? Is that they're fighting with traffic. And so, 100% agree, right? Like the convenience of just sitting from home. I love it. It's great. Any other things that you've kind of noticed that have been kind of a benefit from telehealth?
Yeah, I think especially telehealth with kids.
Yeah.
It's helpful because I get to see more of their homes. They get to show me things that are important to them.
Yeah.
Normally, mom, dad, caregiver doesn't want them bringing in a suitcase of their most treasured possessions versus if the parent sets them up in their room, they're able to show me things that are really important, and that can open up some really cool avenues for exploration.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I feel like there's been, especially early on when we were doing the telehealth thing, like tours of the home or bedroom, right? Where they're like, Mom, can I show Mr. Brandon the trampoline in the backyard, right? And so you're jiggling the camera around, whether the phone or the laptop, and it's like a giant show and tell, right? And so they feel like they get to share more with you, which I feel like is super engaging with kids.
Well, it tells us a lot about what people value and also about what calms and regulates them, because you can kind of see in real time them getting dysregulated, them re-regulating, getting soothed by parents. Yeah. There's a lot of things that we can have kind of more artificially in a session in person, which I think is also beneficial. Yeah. But there's some different ways that happens at home that are pretty cool.
Yeah. There's something when I think about practicing, right? We think about when you're practicing a sport or whatever, there's like that whole muscle memory thing. And so in the same way, we're trying to strengthen maybe a neural pathway memory of like regulation, as you mentioned, and to be able to do that probably in the spot where a lot of times our parents, our families, our children, whatever client comes to us, right? A lot of times you get kind of dysregulated in the home. And so to be able to practice regulating in the area where you can get dysregulated might have some benefit to it, I would imagine, with, like, as you're mentioning, is kind of some of the unique experiences in the home. But what about some of the drawbacks? Is there anything that you've kind of noticed that's been challenging for people that are trying to do telehealth?
Yeah, I think depending, especially because I do a lot of child therapy, and depending on the age of the child, it can require a lot of parental involvement. And a lot of times we're trying to engage the parent, but there's sometimes too when the child might need to process something that they don't feel comfortable sharing in front of the parent or in the home where the siblings are. Yeah. So I think that can be a little bit hard because one of the things we'll talk about is kind of confidentiality and how that plays into telehealth, but it doesn't feel the same as walking into Miss Sarah's office, closing the big heavy door and leaving it there.
Yeah. Yeah. There is something that even just the ritual of the things that we kind of take for granted, sometimes the therapists do, but I think a lot of times the clients do, of the driving to the office, the going back to the therapist's office, maybe parents are sitting out in the waiting room or whatever, right? There's like all of these ritualistic kind of, I'm moving here, I'm in there. That's the container for the therapy in the therapy room. And so I guess we have to be kind of mindful of that if we're doing telehealth too. Right. And so the interesting thing that I've read some articles on it, it seems like there's a lot of people who at first they were like, nah, I would rather have in person. But as time has gone by, more and more clients are actually kind of going, maybe I would prefer teletherapy, telehealth, over having to do the drive and to fight the traffic and, get to the therapist face to face. And so it seems like it's going to be something that will be around for a while, at least very different than what before the pandemic. And so for those individuals that are going, I would prefer telehealth. What maybe tips kind of knowing, all right, so you're probably going to be doing therapy somewhere else other than that office, which we can kind of intentionally kind of create the environment that we want as therapists. But now we don't have as much influence over the home or the office or wherever it is that people are meeting with us. And so do you have any kind of tips as far as what the clients can do to either prepare for telehealth therapy or how to make the most out of that if they choose to do that?
Yeah, so there's several things that I think about. I think the first is that we really plan for the time.
Okay.
Just like we would plan to drive to the office, have something for the caregiver to do while the child is there, or the caregiver would, carve out their own work time to come in. I think it's important that we plan for it and that we still set aside the time. I think it can be easy to kind of let it slide of like, jump on there real quick.
Yeah.
But we really need to set aside and block out that time and say, this is therapy time. We're going to put it on our calendar and be ready for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I imagine just the transition, whether it's the drive in traffic, knowing I'm driving to go do therapy. I'm going to process something. And so there's even some gearing up, I imagine, for clients for that. And so if you're just at home and you're like watching the TV and you're like, I got to have 60 seconds to do my therapy session, you might not be in the same kind of mindset. And so planning for that, so it's kind of maybe setting some time before to kind of get in that. What else would you involve during that planning time?
So I think about things like making sure that your internet is connected, that your laptop is charged. Something that I think about during transition period is, if you have other people in the home, maybe moving them out of the area that whoever's doing therapy is going to be occupying. Some people like to have noise machines or something to set up for confidentiality. So kind of just, instead of having the set office where the therapist has particularly prepared those things, it's the client's shop. Now, the cool thing is the client can cater that specifically to their needs versus the therapist is going to have to do it for all of their clients.
Right.
But it still takes some intentionality versus like if you said, if you're playing video games, then you're stuck in the middle of the game. And I've had that happen before where people forgot or whatever, or that's just what they did. But then they're kind of like, but I want to finish my game and I didn't get a drink or I need to go to the bathroom. It can be easy to forget those things.
Are there, thinking about meetings that you've had with multiple clients, are there certain areas of the house that you find is typically better to kind of be a part of a therapy session in?
Typically it's best if it's in some type of closed setting. So whether that's the child's bedroom or an office or something like that. In the general milieu, there's a lot of distractions. Now, that does give us a chance to practice regulation, but if it's in the living room and the dog's barking or the neighbor comes over or, mom's making dinner in the background, there's more distractions. There's the confidentiality piece where the kid might not say as much. Ultimately, families have to do what they have to do. But if there is some type of more private area, that's generally going to make the client feel safest.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like a like you said, a bedroom, an office, something like that. And you're saying now you have a door that you can close, so there's fewer distractions. And even if you need the noisemaker, the fan or whatever right outside the door, that makes a lot of sense. What else would you suggest as far as to help people kind of prepare for the session?
Yeah. So we do a lot with attachment and trauma here. And a really big thing that we always talk about is especially, again, kids having access to food and water. So we have that in our offices. And I know a lot of our clients that used to come in person expected that.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, I said, get a drink, get something to eat, go to the bathroom, just simple, basic needs. If the kid's hungry, and they tell me in session, I will encourage them to just, pause. Why don't you go ask, your caregiver if you can get a snack?
Yeah.
If you can get that done before session, then it's less interruptions and helps their brains be ready to focus and do the learning that's ready.
Right. I think about even myself. I'm especially some of the work that we do in therapy to have a low blood sugar, to be thirsty, right?
Yeah.
Not having all that nutrition kind of ready to go. Because it can be some tough work that we're doing. And so I could see why. Let's just be prepared, be ready for that, and move forward with food, drink, or whatever. And I could see even sometimes with children, they're not as insightful of knowing, right? And so I imagine even parents going, hey, would you like to have a snack before, and kind of encouraging them to have a snack, because sometimes they'll be like, no, and then 5 minutes in, I'm hungry now. Yeah.
So I have some caregivers who their children are doing really well with teletherapy, and they have a structure where they give their kids snacks. They have them go to the bathroom just like they would do if they were getting ready to drive to the car ride here or getting ready in the lobby. And I think that's made teletherapy a lot more effective.
Awesome. What else you got for me?
So if there's going to be multiple people engaged in teletherapy, kind of checking the camera to make sure that the therapist can see everybody. So there's times it just happens, but I can't see one of the people, and that makes it harder for me to engage, for them to me able to read their facial expressions, for them to kind of engage back with me. So I think that's key. If there's going to be multiple people, make sure you've got either a stand for your phone or got the laptop positioned to where that the therapist will be able to see everybody. There are some kids who don't want to be seen, but part of therapy is being seen and being known. So I think that's an important little detail that sometimes we can lose. Versus in real life, we never think about it. Even if the kid's hiding under the table, a therapist can still see them. Versus if the child hides under the table or behind the couch, the therapist probably can't see them.
Are you there? I don't know how many times I've asked that of a little kid, right? Like, are you there? Does your mom know you're under the table? Right? Like, oh,
like
let me
some
see.
of the old cell phone commercials. That can happen with teletherapy.
Are you there yet? And I think it's interesting. I laughed as you were kind of talking about, thinking about some of the clients that I've worked with during, and the teens who just love like holding the phone and doing the video chat. And it's like slowly, it's like I start to get like just their forehead maybe or their hair. And I'm like, hey, could you just tilt it down a little bit, right? You feel bad kind of asking as if they're, but it's, there's something so important about like, I see you and I can see your face and the emotions that you're feeling, even if you're not saying it, right? There's all those emotional experiences as we're working through something in therapy that it could be, they could just be, it just helps us to get that visual view of the client. And so what other things could clients do to kind of just be prepared for whatever is coming in the session?
So I'm a very person who likes to do therapy as a kind of a collaborative, engaging process, activity oriented. So I ask my families to have some paper, some drawing utensils, some crayons, maybe some scissors, things that we can do activities with if there's a certain game that they want to have. I ask them to kind of be prepared with those supplies. Again, those are things that I would provide here. But I can't teleport right now through the screen. I can do teletherapy, but not teleportation of supplies. Nice. Also, if there's comfort items, again, in the office, we provide stuffed animals and blankets and pillows because there are hard things that we do and we need some comfort. So I ask those to be accessible so that the client can have them if they need them. Tissues, that could be a good thing to have. if clients kind of want to think about what's in the therapist office, they might want to kind of set that up for themselves at home.
Yeah. And I think that part, as far as like those comfort items, is where doing it from the home can be such a benefit, right? It's like you got that special blanket that you might have, or that stuffed animal that your parents are like, no way are you bringing that out into the world, because it's just going to get dirty.
Right.
But then be able to just hold that right in the comfort of your own room. Yeah. And so I think it's so great to even help. Right. Because sometimes parents might be like, oh, don't bring that stuff in because you're playing with stuff during therapy. But really, that can be things that are used for comfort. And so, yeah, thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense. So you mentioned, as far as that sense of just you're kind of preparing yourself. Right. And so I think about a lot of times, if in times that I've been a part of therapy, I'm like, during my drive, there's certain things that I'm like mentally kind of thinking about. And so it seems like we would need to create some space mentally for before the therapy session. What kind of things do you encourage your clients to kind of maybe think about, or kind of be prepared mentally before the session?
Yeah. Well, and I think it depends on the client. Some clients and families, I do kind of give a homework activity.
Okay.
So just like the kid would take the paper back to school, if they kind of want to have that set up, like, sometimes I'll have them do an emotion journal, or if I'm working with parents, they're kind of doing like a detective diary to try to figure out some of their child's triggers, to kind of have that ready, and just kind of the calming, regulating. So maybe they want to do some deep breathing. Maybe they want to, take a little walk around the outside of their home, something like that. Those are things that, again, I will incorporate as part of session, but the more that the person comes in having done those, and the more that we can do kind of more of the deeper processing work in session. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah, I'm thinking about some of the clients I've worked with, right, where they would send me their email of the situations that have happened, things that they kind of want to talk about. So it kind of gives them a chance to be prepared with, like you said, emotion journals. Or I know sometimes some clients will kind of write themselves a note at the end of a last session, and then they'll like review that as they're like coming into the session, right? But really, it's just to kind of get their mind thinking in that kind of therapy way. And so, so just spend some time to have that ready, the journal or whatever. Great. Anything else?
And I'm thinking on that note too, when we have families come in, oftentimes we'll either have the parent for the first part of the session or the end of the session. I recognize that a lot of parents have multiple children that they're caring for at home right now. So that's not something that's accessible to them. So they can't, come on screen, talk to me privately, then let their child have the conversation. So, again, with the email thing, like I have some parents who now, instead of pulling me aside in the lobby, they'll send me an email ahead of time and say, like, these are the things we're working on. These are the things that maybe worked or didn't work. And that's also helpful to help me as a therapist prepare for what might need to be covered in session if the parent can't tell me via screen.
Yeah, I love all the technology and the ways that we can communicate now. And so, I just thinking about that, it's because there's such an alliance with, parents, you're in there every day with the children. And although I know sometimes parents are like, well, you're the therapist, so tell me, but it's like, but you also see every little detail, where it's like, we might only get to see them for, 45 minutes, an hour once a week. And so they still have such an expertise in helping us to understand really how the child's doing in the home with the stress. And so the more that they can intentionally communicate with us on whatever's going on in the life, that's how we partner with our parents. And so great. Anything else that you have that you think?
I think the other thing is just kind of, we touched on earlier, the distraction piece. It's easy when we have technology to, look at your phone or multitask or, other things that are distracting in the home. If we really want to make teletherapy effective, we need to treat it just like we'd be in the therapist's office. So try not to be on your phone, try to put aside other projects, move them out of the way, so that we can really focus on doing the work.
Yeah. Just think about this one kiddo I have that has in the area where they do the therapy, right? He has glasses on, and so I can see the reflection in his glasses when he's kind of looking over if there's like a TV on in that same room, right? And so I think this is where like parents can really partner with as far as kind of helping to set up the environment in a way that is free of distractions. And electronics for our little ones are so enticing. And so, but I think in general, what I see is just that sense of really, we want to make it whatever works for the client, right? As far as that teletherapy goes. And so it's really about partnering with your therapist and kind of talking through any of those barriers, right? Sarah, thank you so much for joining us and just these tips. And again, we hope this is beneficial to you as you consider therapy with Christian Family Care, Arizona Family Counseling. If you're interested in getting to know our therapist a little bit more, check out the link below. And please feel free to come call us, talk to us, and see how we might be able to serve you in whatever counseling and therapy needs you have. Thanks.